He spent years dimming me in private. In public, he played the perfect husband. I stayed quiet until one party, one sentence changed everything. What I did next. Even his mother never saw coming. I don't even know when I stopped recognizing the man I married. Maybe it was when I started pretending not to care that his friends always joked about taming me. Or maybe it was the night he told me, with a straight face, that women like me always complain too much. My name's Erica, I'm 33, and I used to believe that patience was a virtue. Until the day I realized it was just a leash someone else handed me. Liam and I met through mutual friends at a housewarming party. He was the guy who made everyone laugh. I was the one standing near the chips trying not to freak out about the social noise. Somehow we clicked. He was funny, attentive, the type to open car doors and remember your coffee order. We dated for 2 years before we moved in together. Year 3 we married. And somewhere between I do and why are you being so difficult, things shifted. He didn't yell. He didn't hit. He just wore me down. It started with, are you sure you want to wear that? Then, my mom thinks you're too opinionated. And eventually, just smile through it, Erica. Don't start a scene. I thought I was imagining it all. Gaslighting 101. But then came the fundraiser. His law firm does this big charity gala every year. Spouses are expected to show up, look nice, and stay quiet. And this year? I was ready to fake the hell out of it. I bought the dress he liked. He said it made me look less intense. I curled my hair, stayed away from red lipstick. I rehearsed answers to boring questions. I even practiced smiling in the mirror. But no amount of gloss could have prepared me for what actually happened that night. Because that was the night Liam forgot I was listening and called me his PR liability to a partner's wife. A liability. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. But what I did next, let's just say I stopped being the quiet wife with the perfect dress. The first thing I felt wasn't anger. It was shame. Not because of what Liam said, but because of how I let it slide for so long. I stood in the bathroom stall, the sound of clinking glasses and string quartet music muffled by the tile. I stared at my own reflection, lips still curled into that fake smile I plastered on all night. The one that said, everything's fine, I'm just happy to be here. But I wasn't. And I wasn't fine. And I wasn't going to keep pretending. The conversation I overheard wasn't even whispered. He said it like it was a joke. She's not exactly wife material for a firm like ours. More like PR liability with good bone structure. I could still hear the woman's forced laugh. Like she didn't want to be rude but also didn't want to agree. It was a moment, a flash, but something in me cracked. I didn't storm out. Not yet. I fixed my lipstick. Walked back into the ballroom like nothing happened. He spotted me across the room, gave me that lazy half-smile he always used when he knew I'd been waiting for him. I walked straight past him and grabbed a champagne flute. He followed. You okay? He asked, leaning in like a husband who gave a damn. Peachy, I said. Your boss's wife thinks I have good bone structure. That's something, right? He blinked. Hesitated. You heard that. I didn't answer. I just sipped my champagne. He reached for my arm a little too firm. Erica, don't make a scene. That was his line. Always. Don't make a scene. As if my pain was only real if someone else could see it. I left that night in silence. We Ubered home. No yelling. No accusations. I just stared out the window, watching the reflections of red lights blur like blood on glass. The next morning, I didn't speak to him. He acted like it didn't happen. Made eggs. Coffee. Told me I looked tired. I wanted to scream. Instead, I made a list. Mentally. Of every time he'd said something to make me smaller. That time I got a promotion and he said, don't get cocky. When his mother told me I was a bit much, and he agreed with her. When he rolled his eyes anytime I talked about politics or books or, God forbid, my feelings. When he told me my anxiety made me less attractive. When I cried after a funeral and he said, can't you just hold it together? I started sleeping in the guest room that night. He didn't ask why. Just told me to stop being dramatic. And then something happened. I got a DM. From a woman named Claire. Said she worked at his firm. Said she knew it wasn't her place but she thought I deserved to know. I almost didn't open it. I thought it was a prank. But it wasn't. There it was, a screenshot. Liam messaging her on a Friday night saying, don't let the wedding ring scare you. I know how to keep secrets. And another, wish my wife looked at me the way you do when I present. And another. And another. I felt my chest tighten, not in shock. In confirmation. because deep down I think I already knew. I texted her back, calm and short. Thank you. You're not the first. But you might be the last. Then I packed a bag. Nothing dramatic. Just a change of clothes, my laptop, my hard drive. The essentials. I didn't even tell him I was going. He walked into the living room, saw the bag, raised an eyebrow. Where are you off to? I said away. He laughed. What, like a retreat? You know you're being ridiculous, right? I didn't answer. He said you're overreacting. Again. Claire's just a flirt. You're imagining things. And that was the moment. That was the sentence that turned me from a woman who doubted herself to a woman who saw through every lie. I turned to him and said it slowly, clearly. You've been treating me like I'm hard to love. And maybe that's true. But I'd rather be alone with my flaws than with someone who uses mine to feel superior. He rolled his eyes again. Said, oh please, now you're quoting Instagram therapists? I picked up my keys and walked to the door. His final line? You'll be back. You always come back. I smiled, but not for him. For me. Because for the first time in years I wasn't afraid. I was done. I didn't go far. Just a spare room in my friend Devon's apartment. She had a key waiting under the mat, no questions asked. When I walked in, the air smelled like cinnamon and laundry detergent, two things I hadn't realized I missed until I could finally breathe them in without feeling watched. The first night was strange. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just quiet. I sat on the edge of the borrowed bed, surrounded by boxes of books and board games she hadn't unpacked since moving in, and stared at my phone. Liam hadn't texted. Not once. Which was honestly more disturbing than if he had. I kept waiting for it. The where are you, the come home, the you're being crazy. But it never came. Instead, the silence pressed down like a second skin. I told myself it meant he was giving me space. But deep down I knew the truth. He was waiting for me to break first. That was always his game, endurance by omission. He didn't need to yell or beg. He just needed me to feel like I was overreacting long enough to crawl back. But this time I didn't crawl. The next morning, Devon made coffee and didn't say much, which I appreciated. She handed me a mug that said, burn it down, and winked. I laughed, the first real one in weeks. By noon, the silence finally cracked. Liam sent one line. I left your favorite cardigan on the couch. Thought you might want it. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a hook dipped in familiarity, hoping I'd bite. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a dramatic tell-all. Not yet. Just bullet points, a timeline. Of gaslighting. Of manipulation. Of the slow death of joy. At first it felt stupid. Like who was I proving this to? But as I typed, the fog in my head started to clear. Year 1 complimented me constantly, but corrected my stories in front of friends. Year 2 told me therapy was for people who couldn't handle real life. Year 3 said I was difficult because I asked to be included in big decisions. Year 4 flirted with interns at his firm and called me paranoid for noticing. Year 5 told me I made him feel emasculated by speaking too confidently in public. I saw it all laid bare. The pattern. The erosion. That night, I slept without checking my phone. Without wondering if he was home. Without trying to guess what version of him would walk through the door. In the morning, I made a decision. I wasn't just leaving. I was reclaiming the narrative. Because here's the thing, Liam was charming. He knew how to win people over, especially when no one saw what happened behind closed doors. And if I didn't speak, he would. He would twist it. Downplay it. Rewrite it. So I started gathering receipts. Screenshots of his texts. DMs from women who had messaged me before but I had ignored. My therapist's notes from the months I begged myself to believe I was still in love. Photos. Notes. Snippets of conversations I wrote in my phone's notepad when I couldn't sleep. I wasn't planning a war. I was planning a record. Because someday soon someone was going to ask me, what happened? And this time I wasn't going to say it's complicated. It wasn't complicated. It was calculated. And I was finally ready to stop pretending. Devon was hosting a small get-together that weekend. Just a handful of friends, a few drinks, nothing dramatic. She asked if I wanted to come. I hesitated. Not because I wasn't ready to be social, but because Liam's best friend Cal had been invited too. And where Cal went, gossip followed. You don't know anyone your story, Devon said gently. I know, I replied. But I think it's time I tell it anyway. I wore jeans and a black tank top. Simple. Not performative. But when I caught my reflection before heading out the door, I noticed something. I looked steady, not happy, not glowing, just grounded. And that felt like a win. The apartment was already buzzing when we arrived. Music low, conversation warm, familiar faces catching up. Cal was in the corner with 2 drinks in hand, and that smirk he always wore when he thought he knew more than you. I saw the flicker of surprise in his eyes when he spotted me. He came over like nothing happened. "Wow, Erica. Didn't expect to see you here," he said with mock cheer. I smiled politely. "Well, I'm not the one who vanished." He chuckled awkwardly. "So you and Liam taking a break?" I wanted to roll my eyes. Instead I said, "You could call it that. I call it recovery." He blinked. "From what?" I raised my eyebrow. "From 5 years of being slowly erased." That shut him up. I didn't come to start drama, but apparently drama finds women who stop playing along. Because an hour later, Cal was retelling the story in his version. "She just bailed, man. No big fight. No cheating. Just dipped." I heard him say it in the hallway, and something in me snapped. I walked over calm as stone. "I didn't just dip," I said loudly enough that everyone could hear. Cal turned startled. I didn't wait for his reply. "You want to know what happened?" I asked the room. "Here it is. Liam spent 5 years dimming me. He called me emotional, dramatic, hard to love, but only behind closed doors. He flirted with women at work, then said I was imagining things. He mocked my career, minimized my opinions, and told me to just smile through it every time his friends made me the punchline. He told me I was too intense for his firm dinners. And when I cooked him a celebration dinner after he got promoted, he called it trying too hard. In front of his entire family, he told me not to embarrass him in public, and then embarrassed me in every private moment that mattered. I paused. No one spoke. I said, "I didn't leave quietly because I was weak. I left quietly because I was exhausted. But I'm done being quiet now." Cal muttered something about, "That's not the whole story." I stepped closer. "You're right," I said. "The whole story is longer. It includes the screenshots from the women he messaged late at night. The time he called me a liability in front of his boss. The night he said I should be grateful someone like him even married someone like me." I looked around. No one was laughing. No one was defending him. "Tell Liam I'm not his liability anymore. I'm his reminder." I turned, walked back into the kitchen. Devon handed me a glass of wine. Her hands shook slightly. "That was the most baddest thing I've ever seen," she whispered. I didn't smile. Not yet, but my chest felt less tight. My spine straighter. Because it was the first time in years I said everything out loud. And the world didn't fall apart. Only the illusion did. 3 days after the party, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Erica, this is Margaret, Liam's mother. We need to talk as a family." I stared at the screen for a full minute, debating whether to laugh or scream. She didn't call when we got married. She didn't text when Liam forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. But now that I'd finally spoken my truth, she wanted to sit down? I showed Devon the text. She nearly dropped her spoon in her cereal. "Girl, don't go. You know what this is." "I know," I said. "It's not a conversation. It's a lecture in disguise." Still curiosity itched under my skin. So I replied, "Fine. I'll come. But I'm not here for your comfort." The meeting was at the house Liam and I used to rent. I hadn't been back since the day I walked out with my duffel and didn't look back. I wore all black. Not to be dramatic, but because it reminded me that I was in mourning, not for him but for the version of myself I buried trying to make him happy. When I arrived, Margaret was already there. Perfect posture. Pearls. That signature tight-lipped smile she wore like armor. Liam opened the door, didn't say a word. Just moved aside to let me in like I was the ghost of a life he thought he'd exorcised. We sat in the living room. The same one where he once told me to tone it down before his coworkers came over. The same room where I spent countless hours decorating, only to be told it wasn't elevated enough. Margaret folded her hands neatly on her lap. "Erica," she began, "I know things have been difficult." I stared at her. "But marriage," she continued, "is about resilience, about knowing when to fight and when to forgive." Liam stayed silent. I said nothing. She took that as permission to continue. I understand you've been feeling unheard, she said carefully. And Liam, well, he's under pressure. Work. Expectations. Family. Men sometimes say things they don't mean. I laughed. Out loud. She blinked surprised. I don't think this is funny, Erica. No, I said. What's funny is that you think I left because of one sentence. One dinner. One flirtation. I left because your son has been slowly suffocating me for years. And you handed him the pillow. Liam flinched. Margaret's voice sharpened. That's unfair. What's unfair, I said, is being told to know my place. What's unfair is making myself smaller every year to keep your son from sulking. What's unfair is watching you pretend you're above all this while you whispered behind my back that I wasn't good enough. She stood. You're angry. I understand. But anger isn't a strategy, Erica. No, I said. But silence isn't strength either. And I've been silent for too long. Liam finally spoke. Can't we just move on? He asked quietly. What do you want from me? I stood up. Nothing, I said. That's the difference between us. You want someone to fix it for you. I just want to be free. I turned to leave. Margaret called after me. Erica, this is still your home. I turned back slowly. No, I said. This was my prison. And you were the warden. Then I walked out. No tears. No hesitation. And this time I slammed the door so hard the walls shook. It started with the Instagram post. A grainy photo of Liam standing by a lake, arms crossed, face solemn. The caption? Sometimes you give everything and it's still not enough. Loyalty is rare these days. But I'll keep praying for those who lost their way. I stared at it for a full minute. It was masterfully vague, the kind of thing that made people tilt their heads and say, oh no, what happened? And of course the comments came pouring in. You're one of the good ones, man. She didn't deserve you. Hope she realizes what she lost. The worst part? Most of them were mutual friends. People I'd invited into our home. People who once toasted at our wedding. Devin sent me the screenshot first. Then Nancy. Then 2 others. And finally, someone from Liam's firm met me with a warning. He's telling people you cheated. That you had a breakdown. That you left him for someone else. I didn't even feel angry at first. Just tired. It was the same pattern. When Liam couldn't control reality, he rewrote it. He couldn't stop me from leaving, so now he'd turn me into the villain. And in a world where calm men always seem more believable than emotional women, he knew he had the upper hand. Or so he thought. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't post quotes or cryptic stories. Instead, I wrote a message, one I sent to a select few. Hi. I know you may have seen some things online. I'm not here to trash anyone. But I also won't let lies stand uncontested. I left Liam because he treated me like an accessory. Because he flirted with coworkers and laughed about it. Because he told me I was hard to love. Because he spat on my efforts, called me names, and expected silence in return. If you believe I would throw away a marriage for no reason, that's your choice. But I won't carry shame that isn't mine anymore. Some people unfollowed me. A few stayed quiet. But one by one I got responses I didn't expect. I'm sorry. I didn't know. He told us a very different story. Thanks for saying something. But the best one? Claire, the woman from his office who first messaged me weeks ago, reached out again. He's still doing it. Still trying to make me understand him. But now half the office knows. Because I told them everything. You're not the crazy one, Erica. You're the warning. That made me smile. It didn't erase everything. Didn't make it easy. But for the first time I felt seen. Not just believed, understood. Liam, of course, didn't take it well. He sent me a barrage of texts. I thought we agreed not to involve outsiders. You're making me look bad. You always wanted attention, now you've got it. This is low even for you. I didn't reply. He tried calling. I blocked him. Then a final text from a new number, probably his mom's. You're burning everything down. For what? Pride. I looked at the screen and thought, no. Not pride. Freedom. Later that week, Devin threw a small dinner. Just close friends. No drama. There was laughter, music, wine, and at one point someone asked me, so what now? And I realized I didn't need a dramatic plan. I didn't need revenge or a speech. I just needed myself back. So I raised my glass and said, now, I rest. I heal. And then I build something better. From scratch. For me. They cheered. I smiled. And for once it wasn't bitter or forced or shaky. It was real. I waited until the papers were finalized. No more legal strings. No more shared lease. No more his and hers anything. Then I texted Liam one last time. I'll be by Friday morning for the last of my things. Please don't be there. He didn't reply. But I knew he would be gone. Liam hated confrontation when he wasn't in control of the script. Friday came. The city was still waking up, quiet, gray skies, soft air that smelled like summer trying to hang on. I took the bus. Not because I had to, but because I wanted time to think. To breathe. The key still worked. The door creaked the same way it always had. But the apartment felt smaller. Or maybe I was just bigger now. The couch was bare. The kitchen spotless. All the frame photos were gone except one. A small picture of us at our wedding tucked behind a stack of books near the TV. I didn't touch it. Let the ghosts deal with their own mess. I went room by room, quiet, methodical. Grabbed my last few books. My winter coat. A pair of earrings I thought I'd lost. Then I stepped into the kitchen, opened the junk drawer, and pulled out the last thing I needed. My spare key. Still on the keychain he gave me our first Christmas, a tiny silver anchor. He said it meant home. Funny how anchors also sink things. I placed the key on the counter. But I didn't stop there. I reached into my bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. Inside it was a photo. One he'd never seen. It was me laughing. Hair messy, face bare, standing on a mountain trail I hiked alone last week. Free. On the back, I'd written 6 words. She finally chose herself. Remember that. I laid it next to the key. No note. No speech. No last jab. Just the truth. Left like a quiet fire on his pristine counter. Then I turned. And for the last time I walked out. I didn't cry. Didn't look back. Didn't check my phone to see if he'd noticed yet. Because this wasn't about him anymore. It never really was. This was about reclaiming space, voice, self. About knowing that leaving doesn't always look like a grand escape. Sometimes it looks like walking through a familiar door with a straight spine and a quiet heart. Sometimes it looks like setting down a key and picking up your life. And as I stepped into the sunlight, I realized something. He'll tell his version forever. He'll edit the memories, repaint the blame, rewrite the roles. But none of that matters now. Because I'm not in his story anymore. I'm writing my own. If you're reading this, wondering if it's time to go, maybe it is. You don't need permission. Just a moment of truth. And the courage to say, I'm done shrinking. Leave the key. Walk out. And don't apologize for saving yourself.